Scholars, I'm really excited to begin our work for this week. I saw a lot of really great investment in our live lessons. Today, Mr. Gregorian will be going live. The link will be posted on the stream, and you'll be able to get 1 hour of actual support on the material that you're covering this week. So I'm really excited to do that. So today, I want to go over our material for this week, where we're going to be addressing fractions without common denominators. We want to make sure that we're really building this skill, because throughout this year, this was one of the hardest things for many of you to do when it came to fractions. When we were multiplying fractions, there was a lot of great growth. When we were subtracting fractions, there was a lot of great growth. When we were dividing fractions, there was a lot of great growth. But when it came to fractions with unlike denominators, we're still really confused, and I think we just kind of need to make sure that we understand these skills, and we kind of start by looking at it visually. So today, for your CFS, the first thing you want to do is watch Mr. Gregorian's video. And if you're watching right now, step number 1 complete. Second thing you want to do is examine both fractions to look and see if both fractions have common denominators. Throughout this lesson, you'll see that they don't. The next thing you want to do is use the visual to help you determine which fractions you can use and align and make them match up their common denominators. And you're going to see that visually shortly. Then, once you do that, you're going to determine and change your common denominators. So let's get started. Today we're going to be looking at these two fractions right here, okay? Mr. Gregorian has 1/2 plus 1/4, okay? So if you're looking here, first thing, in terms of doing my CFS, I'm noticing that I do not have the same common denominator. So what Mr. Gregorian did was he set up a little table right here below, okay? So right here you see 1/2, okay? And if we're looking at this chart, what I'm trying to think about right now is how many fourths fit into 1/2? And if you're looking right here, we're going to see it perfectly matches up. 2 of these fourths equal 1/2, okay? So 2 of these fourths equal 1/2. That's giving me a clue that I need to change my fraction here, 1/2, okay? And I need to multiply it by 2. Because if I multiply this by 2, that would give me 2/4. Now I can add that up. That would then be 2/4 plus 1/4. That would give me 3/4, which makes sense, because if I'm adding this piece, okay, plus one of these pieces, that will give me this total answer right here, okay? So that's what we're going to be working on throughout today's lesson. Again, the big thing that you want to continue to focus on is adding your fractions or making sure that your denominators are the same. And the way that you can do that is by looking at it visually and then changing your denominators so that they match up visually. All right, scholars, I'm going to do another problem using different common denominators. So I'm going to go and set up my grid visually so you can go ahead and see that. This box right here represents one whole. I'm going to divide it up into 2 separate fractions. Okay? So I have 2 fractions I'm going to be looking at, and the 2 fractions that I'm going to be adding up together today are 2/5 plus 1/10. So I'm going to split up my first fraction into 5ths. I'm going to go ahead and set up my bottom fraction into 10ths. Again, this will look similar to what you're seeing on IXL, but I'm just kind of showing you the steps so that you can do it where you're not relying solely on the images on IXL. So I'm going to divide this up into 10ths. Okay? So really quickly, I want us to look right here at this part right here. So I have 1/5 here. And if I'm gonna isolate this part just to focus on how much 1/5 is in comparison to 2/10, I'm gonna go ahead and look at this section right here. In this box right here, I have my tenths. And in this section here, I can see that 1/5 is the same as 2/10. That's again helping me understand how I can find the common denominator, okay? And also understanding the equivalency between these two fractions, even though their denominators are the same. Because oftentimes we think about fractions and we think, oh, 1/5 has a bigger denominator at the bottom, so it's actually bigger. But if you're looking at 2/10, they're actually the same. And if I move to 3/10, that would also be bigger than 1/5. All right, scholars, now I'm gonna help you guide you through the work that you're gonna be doing in order to add and subtract these fractions using the iExcel platform. Okay, so I see that I have 1/3 and 1/6. Again, I'm noticing the 3rd and the 6 are not the same denominators. So I need to determine what is the common denominator that I'll be using to answer this question, okay? So if I'm looking at that 3 and I'm looking at that 6, I'm gonna go ahead and apply it and write over here on my whiteboard, okay? So Mr. G's got his trusty whiteboard. He's gonna go ahead and write 1/3 plus 1/6. And as I'm seeing this little chart here, I see that 1/6, if I had to like double it up, I could only probably fit one more in here, which is telling me that maybe that would then be 2/6. But I'm gonna go ahead and check that with my work. And this work is gonna model some of what you're gonna do. So really quickly, I'm looking at, I have a 3rd and I have a 6. So I need to find my common denominators. So let me list out my 3's. So I've got 3, 6, 6 and 3 both go into each other. That's 2 times. So I'm going to multiply this by 2. Okay, I'm going to multiply this side by 1. This will help you tomorrow because, again, doing this process of bringing everything down will make this work a whole lot easier. And you're going to set this up just like I am on notebook paper or paper that you have on the side. So 2 times 1 gives you 2. 2 times 3 gives you 6. Okay, over here, even though this is simple, we know 1 times 1 gives us 1. We know that 1 times 6 gives us 6. It's easier to do it that way. So now I've got 2 plus 1. Again, I'm not adding my denominators. I'm only adding my numerators, my numbers up top. That gives me 3. That gives me 6. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and type that in to iExcel 3, 6. You got it, okay? That is the steps that you're gonna be using, okay? Again, this type of work where you're lining it up this way will help. So seeing it visually and then setting it up on your scrap paper will help you, especially for tomorrow, okay? And the big thing to focus on again is here. Even though I'm not changing 1/6, I'm still multiplying it by 1 because it helps me line up my work and make sure that my thinking is clear.